Hopefully a couple of people are going to join us. I'm not sure, but we're going to basically continue the painting that I worked on last week. So that would be this one here. Hopefully you can see it. The light's better in the morning, so I think I might do one in the morning instead. And in the meantime, because there's a couple of different steps that we have to take and things have to dry, I'm just going to ask a couple of questions because people have been asking questions of a lot of artists these days in terms of like how we're surviving COVID and you know, whether or not it's affecting our inspiration, and of course, you know, knowing that all the shows are have been canceled pretty much, then it creates a little bit of anxiety. And I know that we're not the only ones that are feeling that anxiety, but anyway, I thought I would talk a little bit about that too. So what we're going to do today, so normally, as I mentioned before, also because I was bored, I decided I should maybe change my hair color. So we're running with bright pink. It got a little bit crazy and a little bit more pink than I was expecting, but that's totally fine. So basically what happened last week, we worked on this piece here, and there were a couple of stages that I would normally do that I didn't because of just of time and things like that. And you know, I'm really new to this, so if it's, you know, if there's advice or whatever, I'm more than happy to kind of answer that. And meanwhile, while things are drying, we'll kind of maybe chat. So one of the first things, what I'm going to do is just tilt it a little bit down, and then every once in a while I'll tilt it back up. So if anybody has any questions, then we can address them, and hopefully... Why is it things work in testing and then they don't work in real life? All right. So I think that you should be able to see what I'm doing. So this is the piece here. Normally what I would have done, and I couldn't because this was still wet when I was originally doing it, I was trying to do as quickly as possible, is I actually put a coating on the background. So I'm going to do that now, and I don't normally do it at this stage when I have paint on the piece, but I totally can because I'm going to go back and overwork some of the stuff anyway. So I just basically keep it quick. Sanding sponge to it, and that's really just to make it nice and smooth in the background. So the next thing I'm going to do before I put the color on it is I'm actually going to shave off the top. So if you've seen any of my videos before, you'll know that the reason I do that is because I'm working with a palette knife. If I'm trying to put another color over top, you can kind of see that it's really hard. And so what ends up happening is that the color goes on the peaks, but you don't get the color into any of these depths here. And what I want to do is I want to create something that's kind of more interesting, kind of like what you're seeing here. Like there's multiple colors that are kind of blending together to make something that's visually interesting. So the only way to do that after that dries is to basically take a knife to it. So I basically just go in, I can shave off all these tops. So there's a couple of other things that it does. So the main reason I do this is because, as I just said, it allows me to kind of continue to paint the next level. One of the things I do find is kind of fun with this is that because I put multiple colors on the palette, sometimes when you peel off some of these top layers, you can see here you actually kind of bring out these different pieces where you kind of have a little bit of a reveal. And so that makes, again, just another layer of interest within these petals. My real goal is I don't want any of these goldfish or petals or whatever to be a single color, because that's really not that interesting. So this just gives another little bit of kind of variety and interest. So I'm going to kind of work through this. It's you can see that it's kind of it's a bit aggressive, kind of pulling all these peaks down. At the same time, you want to be really careful that you don't kind of gouge the wood or anything like that at the same time. So that's kind of what my intent is. I think this one actually will probably be fine. This is a small piece, so that's not going to take me that long to do it. With some of the larger ones, it can actually take quite a while, and it actually is a little bit hard on the wrist, I have to say. So I use a long knife like this, and I use it kind of, the reason I have the blade so far out is because it's a little bit of bend, because I don't want, well, there's a couple reasons too. Also, I'm left-handed, and so I find that being right-handed, I can get the knife lower to the panel, but since I'm left-handed, this thing's in the way, so that this allows me to kind of bend, so I can kind of get a nice straight line when I'm cutting this stuff without actually getting into the way of gouging wood. Okay, so that part's done. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a varnish on this part here. And the reason I do that is because I like to have the opportunity with a piece of either resining it at the end or leaving it non-resined. And so there's pluses and minuses for both of that. A lot of people like the resin because it's very contemporary. But a lot of people actually, the reason they're attracted to palette knife work is they like the texture. They like to be able to feel the texture. And once you resin it, it flattens it out. So that's why I'm going to flatten this piece out. So this is what I use. Liquitex gloss varnish. This one's a gloss. Sometimes I use a matte or a satin. Oh, it's a brand new one. Hang on, so I'm going to grab another one that's already open. Okay. So we don't have very much of this, and as I said, I normally wouldn't do this at this stage. So one of the things that I have found that seems to be very different with canvas than panel. Well, first of all, you want to make sure you get all your phrasings off here, because you don't want them to get embedded into the varnish, which is one of the reasons you would normally do this ahead of time. Okay, so I'm basically going to make sure I catch all the edges. This doesn't take very long, but you do have to be really careful. What ends up happening is that on the wood panel, you seem to be able to kind of see the marks of where the varnish is, like any of the irregularities or bubbles or anything like that, which doesn't seem to happen on the canvas. So I'm not sure why that is, but I certainly don't want that to be a detractor. I always like to look at it in the light, and then you can kind of see where there are pieces that are missing. The other thing is it's kind of important not to go over it and overwork it too much, because the varnish can go a little bit foggy. But you do want to make sure you get right to the ends. And I think that's looking pretty good. Okay. So I'm just going to put this up a little bit now. Oh, hi. I see we got some people. Cool to see. Yeah, okay, that's cool. So other people sand them as well. Yeah, I think that kind of, for me, that helps. And as I said last time too, I really like kind of that textural feeling of being able to actually feel the wood. So as this drying, I'm just going to pull out my palette and get my paints ready. I tend to use a bit of a smaller set of colors for this next layer, and sometimes I will do, you know, up to 3 or 4 layers on top of each other, depending on the piece and depending on the energy of it. So I like to say I like to sneak up on a piece. So I want to kind of get the ground work down first, then I have the opportunity to kind of look at it and live with it for a little bit, and then continue to work it. So, questions that have been asked, which I will attempt to answer. So, I guess the biggest one is how has sort of social isolation affected, affected me personally. Certainly we know that it's affected a huge number of people with their creative endeavor. Well, creative people and people who are unemployed and people who are now spending way more time at home. And in some ways, I think that can be really cool, because you see a lot of people are kind of tapping into their creativity, which I'm always super thrilled to see, because I think that, that's really good for the soul. But the other thing too is that it can also be pretty stressful. For me, I found, especially at the beginning, it was really hard to spend, most of my time just kind of at home and in my studio and not really have that interaction. It would be unusual for me typically to not have opportunity to go out and talk to people, talk to gallery people. I talk to everybody, but I guess ultimately I'm a pragmatist, and the reality is this is where we are right now, so you kind of just have to wrap your head around it. And so I'm finding in the last couple of weeks it's been much easier, because I think I've just adjusted to it. It's also allowed me to spend a little bit of time on a lot of those things that I've been planning on doing for a while. One of them is getting my store open, my little treasures, which I'm very happy is actually now been done, and sold a few pieces, so I'm delivering some of those. But it's also just more the fact that I have a little bit more breathing time to think about kind of what I want to do. So this is almost dry. Oh, where's my list? All right, I wrote them down on this canvas. So the other one is how to stay motivated. So for me, that was probably more, well, I don't know if it's a challenge. It was just, I can keep busy, but to stay motivated to actually produce work when you don't know if you have a kind of an audience for it can be a bit of a challenge. And I'm typically pretty deadline driven. So if I have a show, I know I have to produce something, then I'll kind of get my shit together and actually produce stuff. And I find sometimes it's easy to spend time doing a lot of other things and modifying, updating your website and things are really important. But to actually kind of get into the studio, I find I have to sneak up on it a little bit. And I think I'm hearing a lot of artists are kind of like that. It's not, you kind of can't just go into the studio and work. I certainly can't. A lot of the other people I know can't. So you kind of creep up on it a little bit. So, and that could be cleaning your studio space. It could be organizing your paints. It could be doing your backgrounds. It could be, painting the sides. Something to kind of get you into the zone of it. And I find that once you're kind of into that mindset, then, that certainly helps you to kind of start to create. I have also personally found that if I get up in the morning and I dress in my painting clothes, then I'm much more likely to actually go and paint as opposed to do all the other things that need to be done, cleaning my closets out, going grocery shopping, which now is a hugely exciting thing, which never was before. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm doing and where I'm working. One of the other things I just wanted to mention, and this is completely scattered, but someone asked me the type of palette knife I use. So I tend to use this one. It's from Desairs, number 2928. I just kind of like this shape. I have a bunch of palette knives. These are the ones I use for the smaller little treasures. This shape tends to be something that I like. I like the bendiness of it. And I like the fact that it just, I don't know, sits well in my hand. So this is a brand new one. I usually try and have a brand new one when I'm starting a brand new big painting, because what happens is that the way, I guess maybe the way I work is that sometimes the blade gets a little bit warped, and because I'm trying to mix my colors on the knife, what ends up happening is I don't get that nice clean petal shape. It ends up being a little bit messy. So I kind of, when it starts to get a bit sloppy, I know that I need to change up my knife. Okay, let me see if there are any questions or anything. Nope. Cool. Oh, creative time, my concentration has been really poor. I was just digging in the garden. Yeah. Me too, except it's so cold here now. I don't know where you are from, Joanne, but certainly here it's been too cold to be in the garden. So I definitely do love to garden, and that is definitely an inspiration. I just think mentally it's just good to get your fingers in the dirt and just really smell the earth. And it is one of the reasons, though, that I paint. My inspiration really is nature, and even though it's not representational, I really do try and make sure that the pieces kind of capture that color and energy and flow of nature. And I do think in this kind of time that people do want to surround themselves with something that is kind of more organic and natural and kind of back to the earth, especially since we had Earth Day yesterday. Okay, so I'm going to just turn this down a little bit and see if we can just make this work. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so this piece is going to go this way, and I think, but as you kind of know, I can work upside down all the time, so it can also equally go this way, and I haven't really fully decided yet, and it doesn't really actually matter. I just like to work on it so that it's compositionally strong. Just make sure that's dry. Yeah. So what I want to do now is, when I look at this piece, I kind of see that there's some areas that I would like. I think I like the general flow of it. I like the looseness that's happening in here, so it's not kind of going from a solid area to a really loose area. You've got that kind of transitional piece where there's more petals overlapping, but it's not too much. But there's some areas up here I find are a little bit muddy, which I don't love, and just not as interesting. So, and I'm finding the orange is a little bit strong, and I knew that when I did that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlap some other colors onto the orange. Not that much, because I feel like I'm pretty close on this one. So, let's see, we'll start with some colors here. So again, you can see mixing my colors, so you can see I've got some liquid mirror. There's two types of green here, and the and this iridescent turquoise. So in this grouping, actually, this level, I've sort of decided I want to use quite a few metallic colors because I just like them. And I'm just going to kind of go in and add a bit of a lighter layer in here. So as my knife gets dry, one of the other things that I kind of like to do at this point is almost scraping a little bit. Now, even though I scrape this down, there are still definitely peaks, and you can see right here, there's still areas where the paint kind of catches the peak because the palette knife is hard. And so that is something that I want to do. Don't know, you probably can't see what I'm doing over here, so sorry about that. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll kind of say, you know, maybe I don't want it to look too uniform, so I'm going to go over top of some of these other pieces and put a little bit of a different color on top. And sometimes I might decide I like that, sometimes I might not. This is actually an iridescent mixed with the magenta, the light magenta, so I kind of like to add a little bit of coloring into the top of that. And the biggest thing really, oops, make sure those little things you just shaved off and get your paint palette, is adding a little bit of depth here. I find it was getting a little bit too kind of uniform, so I do want to add a bit of depth, but I don't want it to get too dark because that was kind of one of the things I didn't like about it. So I'm going to kind of just do some overlayering. All right, other questions. Let's see. My inspiration. Well, my inspiration is always nature. It's definitely harder to get out these days, which is a challenge, especially in Toronto. Like a lot of the parks are closed, and you know, I live in the city, so even going out for a walk is, you know, it's a challenge to kind of do your social distancing. You know, everyone's trying, and we're kind of all doing our best, but I think that gets hard. I'm so grateful I've got a backyard. At least I can go and hang out there for a little bit, which is really nice. And that just gives me that kind of connection to gardening that Joanne was talking about. And it's great to sit out there, and I've got a bird feeder that I'm just loving. Watch the birds and watch the garden come to life. So hopefully you can still see what I'm doing here. This is probably about as interesting as watching paint dry. Like if you can start to see now, kind of adding in these iridescents will really kind of catch the light. Now I might go back and do a couple of these layers. It kind of depends on how it's feeling and what I'm liking. So I think I'm kind of liking this pink in here. So I might do a little bit more of that. I might mix a little bit of the pink and white. Let's just kind of do a pale pink. As you probably guessed, I kind of have an affinity for pink. I like pink. It's definitely a color that sits kind of naturally in the garden, so I think that's kind of, you know, that's of course the beauty of being inspired by nature, is you can pretty much do anything you want, which is great. I like to try and not have it too even, so I don't want this side to look exactly like this side. So this side is kind of more the oranges and pinks. I'm going to work a little bit more with the yellows in here. But that said, I do want to make sure I kind of am drying the eye. So I'm going to put a little bit of this pink in here, so your eye is kind of pulled around the piece. And some of this will get kind of overworked a little bit too as I kind of work on these other pieces. So one of the other reasons I had to do my hair, not that I'm sure you really care, but as I was looking at these videos and I realized because I work flat, all you can see is the top of my head. It's just like, oh, that's kind of scary. So, you know, some people are trying to do their home cuts at home, and some people are trying to do their home colors. And so my daughter helped me with my color, and it was a little bit more stronger than I was expecting, but I made it kind of fun. So we are here now with this color hair for a while until it washes it. Okay, so then I want to add, I kind of like this this bright green. This is a color from a company called Sennelier. So I just, well, I actually have to say I love these packages, especially when I'm going to the cottage or doing, I don't do a lot of technically plein air painting, although I do paint outside. I don't paint what I see necessarily. It's more, I paint what surrounds me is basically what inspires me. But these are really great for traveling because they're just so light, and I just love the colors, and this bright color I love. I just need to find, oops, sorry. I think I need this bright yellow. So some of these ones I'm finding are these colors here. I feel like I need a little bit more interest. A lot of them came off as being fairly uniformly yellow, which I didn't really want, so we're going to kind of just go over them a bit. I think add a few more pieces up here. Now and again, I'll have to sort of take a look at this. So again, what I do is I'll live with this for a little bit after I'm finished. And see if I like it. I didn't like what I was doing there, so I'll just kind of cover some of that up. Okay, so the other thing I like to do is I just love liquid mirror, which is this color here from a company called Trier. It's a Canadian company. I think they are based out of Kingston, and I just love this color because it's sparkly and shiny. And so what I like to do with this one is I like to just kind of go over any areas that I think are a little bit dead. Sometimes you have these colors that because of the background color, they're kind of a little bit not as interesting. And I'll kind of go in and put a bit of liquid mirror on there. And I kind of like to have a little bit of it on the peaks here. And for me, it reminds me of kind of the light. I don't know if you can see it in the light here, but it reminds me of the light kind of coming through the trees. So it's quite iridescent, and as you're walking past it, you can really see the, you can kind of see how it changes. And I like that too, the fact that it's almost like you're walking past a window with something that's moving and organic. Okay, so I would normally around this stage, I would normally kind of probably photograph it, might live with it for a little bit and see if it's kind of done. Just gotta want to make sure that it's not too uniform, but I feel like it's kind of working. So one of the other things I used to, again, to work with this same concept of things being iridescent and catching the light like this. Sorry, I feel like I need a little bit more of this dark color here. So I used to use glitter because I like the way that the glitter reflected the light. But obviously, glitter is not a very professional artist grade material, and that posed a problem because once the glitter was the only thing I could find for a long time that actually would retain its ability to reflect light after I resined it. So I worked with a couple of other things, including diamond dust, and a friend of mine worked for Swarovski crystals. So I had some crystals I was working with. And they also, unfortunately, once you resin it, it goes completely lumpy. So I finally discovered, which I'm just loving, is mica. So this is pearl mica, and the way that it dries is it has, actually you can see a little bit of it here. So it's in a medium, but it dries like this. So you can see it catches the light, it's actual stone. I personally have a bit of an affinity for mica just because at our cottage we have a mica mine, and I just, when I was a kid, I just thought it was super cool. So what I like to do with this is put it almost, again, you kind of have to have a bit of a leap of faith with this stuff because it looks super ugly when you put it on because it's in this kind of gray, dark gray stuff. But I like to put it just at this junction here, where again it kind of looks to me like the sun is sparkling through, or it's coming through the water, the sun's hitting the water and it's coming through the canopy of leaves, or if these are fish, because a lot of people see fish. I see flowers because I'm a gardener, but a lot of people see fish. So if they see fish, then it could kind of be the flash of, of light that goes on the silver scales and things like that. So that's kind of where it's at. Okay, so pretty close to that being done. I'm just gonna look up here. All right. Oh, she's in Bolton. Yeah, that's lovely. Oh, now I'm nervous because now I've got actually artists watching me. It always seems to be less stressful when there's strangers watching me. All right, so this is kind of where we're at right now. I'm thinking it's got some nice colors. I think I'm liking the balance of it. I do find I need to kind of live with it for a little bit, so sometimes I'll kind of hang it up, and the next day I'll kind of decide if it's done or not. And I probably will go in and do a little bit more kind of fine tuning too. I mean, I do find that it's one of those things that I typically work on a couple pieces at once, and I'm working on something else and I like where it's coming through, and then I'll just pull another piece and it's like add that to that as well. So it's one of the advantages of working in kind of the studio where you've got multiple things going on at the same time. Okay, so for my edges, I usually use silver, and that was actually from, I used to use a Payne's Gray, which is like a blue-purple gray, and the concept was that no matter which piece of mine you bought from whatever year, like it could be from 2010, and you bought another piece in 2015, then the background or the sides would always match, and so you could kind of mix and match them as a set. And that was especially important with, say, things like the little treasures or smaller pieces, where I found a lot of collectors would actually buy multiple pieces, and then over the course of a few years they might have like 5 or 6 pieces, and because the backgrounds are all the same, they all work together. A couple of years ago I started working with a gallery in Naples, Florida, and I sent her a sample piece, and she called me in a panic, and she's like, "Oh my God, I love your work, but those dark sides are just not going to work in Florida. Like they're way too dark, they're way too dominant." And so therefore she said, "You have to do white." I'm like, "Oh, white's never going to work for me. I'm just not careful enough to keep everything clean," honestly. And so I kind of went with the silver, and so now I kind of do silver for everything, and I like it. I think it's a bit kind of contemporary, and seems to be working. When I do commissions, I give people a choice of what color they want their sides, and I will usually make a recommendation, but usually people would go with the silver because it kind of goes with the a lot of the neutrals in the homes right now. I have also done though kind of dark browns to match some of their some of the other pieces they have in the home, or I'll still often do dark as well. But I think the silver is nice for kind of separating the piece from the wall and kind of not being too dominant. So the reason I do this with my finger, people are probably going, you know, you could use a brush for that. I think I just honestly like to get messy. I think that's the thing from being a kid. But it's also, it allows me to kind of do the edge, and I put your finger like this, then I can kind of go through and I can make sure I get right to the edge without it kind of going over. And I found when I've used a brush or a roller, then some of the little fuzzy parts from the roller and stuff end up going through and kind of getting on the front of the painting. So that's not what I want to do. Okay, so I think that's pretty close. I'm thinking, so yeah, so you think it goes this way, which kind of works. I think it works that way. So that's kind of how I decide if I think it's done. I mean, I kind of like the petals flowing down, you know, but even that's kind of a cool thing. I think the balance is working. So we'll see. And I'll determine whether I figure out if I want to resin it or not. So let me see if there's any other questions. I don't think so, but just let me know if you're interested in me doing another one. I potentially could do, just kind of take this piece to the next step, which would be resining it. It's not very interesting to watch because it's a lot of stirring for 3 minutes and blowtorching and, you know, manically and obsessively picking bubbles out of the paintings with a bamboo skewer. But if you're interested in that, I'm happy to kind of do a live video on that. And I've had some also requests next time to do it on Instagram Live, because some of the people I know don't have aren't on Facebook. So if you're interested, let me know. If it's useful, let me know. If there's any feedback or comments that I can make it easier or more interesting to watch. There's only so much I can do watching paint dry, but please let me know. And hope you have a fabulous day. Hope you're being creative, and we will talk to you later. Bye.